Hello all, and welcome back to another episode of TV and Us and a brand new season of TV and Us as well. This is a conversation show about the TV series we just can't stop talking about. My name is Jennifer Hahn.
And I'm Sarah Callan.
And each season we focus on a different show, reviewing it episode by episode, and we invite you to watch along with us. Right now, we are going to be diving right into The Bear Season 2. And today we're going to be talking about episode 1 titled Beef. You didn't think that we're going to talk about The Bear Season 1 and not review Season 2, did ya? If you haven't watched this episode yet, this is your spoiler alert. Please check it out before continuing to listen to the rest of this episode. All right, Sarah, how are you feeling about being back? Another season of TV and Us and more of our friends in the world of Bear.
I am so excited to be back. When we first were talking about reviewing The Bear, there were a few episodes that I was especially pumped to talk about. And a couple of those are in this season. There are 2, maybe 3 that I'm like very excited to talk about.
Okay.
So
wow.
This is going to be so much fun. I'm very much looking forward to this season.
I'm pumped. And that is a comment that I've heard several times from people that have been like, this one episode in season 2, one of the most perfect episodes of television. I'm like, bold claims. And lots of content is created here on TV and Us Pod from bold claims. Go listen to our entire True Detective season 1 and season 4 seasons. But here we are. We are going to continue our journey with The Bear. And today we're going to talk about episode 1. All right, kick us off, Sarah, with an IMDb summary for this episode.
Faced with the reality of opening a new restaurant, the crew must come up with a plan, but the financial problems are bigger than they expected, and Carmy has to make a risky decision.
All right. And in TV and Us tradition, we like to start off our discussion with our episode titles of choice. So, Sarah, what is your episode title for season 2, episode 1?
Mine is Go Fast Boats Mojito.
Nice.
All one word.
Yes, all one word is the specific, that is the detail that is also important. Oh my gosh. Yeah. My episode title choice is Good, Terrible Ideas.
Nice. Yes. And there are a lot of those in this one.
That's great. There's a lot. All right, so let's dive right in, shall we? Here we are with a brand new season, the opener of the season with this episode 1. This does feel like a new chapter, a new era for our friends here in this world of The Bear. Tell me what your thoughts are about episode 1, and particularly I'm actually intrigued to hear how this was on a second viewing as well. So maybe your initial reactions the first time you watched episode 1, and then what your thoughts are after this time around.
Yeah, I think, both times just pretty shocked by the tonal shift that happened, because season 1 is real scrappy, real chaotic, like this really like propulsive energy, and you're just constantly moving, constantly going, and it's a whole stressful vibe. And then you get into season 2, episode 1, and it's completely different. Like, you start out differently. You're with Marcus taking care of his mom, and as she's in the hospital or sick or whatever, and it's slow and it's quiet and it's tender, and like this whole episode, there is tension, there is stakes, there is drama, all of that is baked in. But it's such a different vibe, and there's this weird sense of calm throughout this episode until you get into the last like 2 minutes, and then that's when like the electric guitar comes back in, and they're coming up with a plan, and like, let's go, this is the Bear.
Yeah.
But I'm still so struck by that decision to just change the vibe and the tone of the show in this first episode. And I think it's a really interesting choice because we know that the characters and the restaurant are both in such a different place. So it makes sense that this would feel so different than the previous season. And I am once again impressed by the writing and the entire production team to make us feel that difference in addition to being able to like see it on the screen.
Yes, yes, very much so. And like from in my brains, I know that that is actually the smarter choice for the show to make, because if they do a continuation of the same vibes, same bits from season one, like the law of diminishing return event inevitably will kick in. So it's smart for them to switch it up, change it up. But I have to say, I was feeling like Richie in this episode, where I'm like, I don't want things to change. Like, I liked that old vibe. Where's that? It took for me, I think, some getting used to and getting my brain wrapped around like, this is a new chapter and we are transitioning to new endeavors for this whole crew. And I think there's a lot of setup for a lot of dynamics that are shifting around in this group of friends, and this family. You see Tina starting to step into these new roles, which I want to talk about that moment at some point. You see that Sugar's added to the mix as well. And I think she just brings such an interesting counterbalance to the way that both Sydney and Carmi operate. And you see the kind of the three of them, their strengths bouncing off of each other. And Richie's like way more mellow and contemplative and figuring out his purpose. So there's so many dynamics that have shifted in this group. And I think there's a part of me, this is probably a me like problem, not really with the show, but I was just like, man, I take some getting used to for me. And I am intrigued to see what they do next, because I think there's that tail end bit of like the harkening back to the vibes of season one. But the other factor is we are reviewing season one and season two back to back. So I did have a thought of like, man, I think if time has passed for when these things actually did air, and you've got like several months to potentially, I think it was like what, a year or two between season one and season two?
It was a year, yeah.
Right. I think that also plays a factor too. So you're not going straight from one vibe to the next one immediately. So a lot of personal reflection of like, what, this is objectively the smart choice. I'm not loving it, but I do know it's the right choice for the characters and for the foundations that it's going to lay for the rest of the season. So I'm just warming up to it. My toes are in there now, and I'm gonna fully commit as we continue on our journey through season two.
Well, and what I love about it, because it is jarring, and I kind of binged the first two seasons the first time that I watched it too.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. Did you feel it too?
Yeah, definitely felt that. So at least this time, like I knew that it was coming, but it is still very jarring. But what I love about that is that the characters are still themselves. And so those moments of chaos still come. They just look a little bit different. So like Carmi trying to do math and being unable to do math, and that whole scene where everybody is talking and just scribbling on the cardboard boxes, and that's just madness. Or when they're talking with Uncle Jimmy and he agrees to repay the loan in 18 months without actually having any numbers or any of that going on. So there are these moments of chaos and tension in the way that the show is still setting up these stakes and these things that we as the audience are now like, oh my gosh, they have to look out for this. I just so appreciate that, because it didn't just change the vibe and then make everything okay and tranquil and peaceful, but the characters are still being their crazy selves, and so I think even though it feels different, they're still themselves. So there's still tension and stakes and chaos. It just looks a little bit different.
Yeah. No, that's so true. And I think it's the difference between kind of like this sitcom format, which I think is interesting to talk about in context of The Bear, because these characters have such a strong chemistry together as a group in different dynamics and pairings and trios. They go off on little side adventures, and there is so much levity and comedy and humor in the ways that all of their big personalities collide with each other, that there's a lot of like reflection and things in common with like a good sitcom that has those same aspects. So the difference though is that sitcoms kind of continue to play into the way that each character operates and creates new situations from the being. And there's something like comforting about the fact that they are so familiar. But I think that the show is focused more on seeing these characters grow and step into new roles. Like I think seeing the way that Sydney has evolved and changed and now taking more of a leadership role in this episode was really thrilling. She's also pulling in other characters that she's identified these superpowers and strengths in and growing their potential. So the beauty of the show is that the characters are not static and they are not staying themselves, but they are growing, evolving, and changing. While many of those like dynamics are still very much there. Richie is still Richie. Fax got his little moment as well to be him. There's something still familiar about a lot of them.
Can we talk about Sydney? Because
Yes.
she is just killing it in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I just love the way that she is one of the few people that can put Carmi in his place a little bit. Like I think the rest of the crew respects him and looks up to him and reveres him so much, and you see that dynamic. But in a lot of ways, like at a mental level, Sydney is his equal, and so she can call things out in him in a way that like none of the other characters feel empowered to, nor do they like have the dynamic to. And I feel like it plays into the trust that they've built, but also them learning to yield to each other because they're just such strong and talented at their craft. But I loved those moments where she's just absolutely ripping him apart for his lack of mental math capabilities. Those made for some really, really fun moments as well. And I think throwing sugar into the mix is also really fascinating. But yes, it is. You see her really becoming a leader in a way that we saw glimpses of in season 1, but she's really holding her own and making key decisions as a partner to Carmi instead of working under Carmi.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great to see her being able to step into that partner role and being so confident in what she's doing. There's a conversation that they have in the office before she falls into the wall, where she's talking about all of these things and these next step, and she's going to handle it, and they have to jump through all these hoops, and Carmi just looks so bewildered, like deer in the headlights, and Sydney's like, I got this, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, this is the process. And so it's just so great to see her with that confidence of, I'm good at this and I can do this, and I am just as equal of a partner as you are, and I'm going to handle this. And so I love to see that, because we knew that Sydney was good, but this is actually her stepping into those roles and actually, like you said, actually leading, and being his equal rather than kind of being thrown to the sharks, and just having to kind of flounder for a bit. And then she offers Tina the sous chef job.
Oh my gosh, that moment. Oh, it was. And I think what's great about that moment is it's so well earned because of how much these two have gone through over the course of season 1. Like had this been a moment that happened towards the end of season 1, okay, fine. But the long runway to build up to that moment for the two of them was so great. Warmed my little heart so much. And I think the way that Sydney also like asks her, where she kind of feels a little awkward about it too, and she's like, if you want it, cool, but like don't worry. And also like if you need to go home. Like it's so endearing. And then just the biggest smile on Tina's face, man. And she's such a spicy character and can like dole it out, but you just see her heart just overjoyed in that moment. It was the most tender, oh my gosh, memorable moment for sure.
And then the camera lingers on Tina for so long as she's just standing there, just beaming, smile from ear to ear. And that, like, it just warms your little heart to see her just being so proud and being so excited. And it's such a different Tina than the one that we met before. And so it's this culmination of her character journey to be able to step into this role and have that trust between them and this trust between this team for Tina to step up and actually, start to lead herself, because she is in many ways a leader in this bunch. And so for Sydney to be able to recognize that and actually like elevate her to that position, just means so much.
Mm-hmm. And I think that also the show again is playing the long game in this, because so many of those seeds were planted way back in the middle part of season one. You know, there's that
Mm-hmm.
short little conversation that Tina has with Richie, where Richie's throwing his little temper tantrum, and Tina says like, "Hey, like I'm excited this for me too, because I feel like I'm getting to really realize my potential in my craft." And so there's this seed that's planted of like, oh, Tina's got ambition. She's got passion for this. It's not just a job for her. She's not here to collect her paycheck and hang out with this crew. No, like she actually loves this craft and wants to get better and sees herself getting better under this new leadership with Carmi and Sydney. And so the way that that gets paid off here, to see her really step into this brand new role where she can really realize that potential, it's just so thrilling. And those little seeds were planted way back in like the middle part of season one.
Mm-hmm. And we also see a different side of Richie, which is a continuation of a previous episode from season one, where it's that same episode where he's so resistant to change. And
Yeah.
then we see in this episode where he acknowledges that change
Yeah.
is so hard for him, and he's trying to change, but he's struggling with it. And it was just the humility for Richie to be able to admit that is huge.
Uh-huh.
And also just his own self-awareness to be like, oh, this is actually something that I'm really struggling with. Let me identify that and then voice that is also a big deal.
His casual little Carmi's bopping down the stairs. He's like, yo, like, what do you think about purpose?
Yeah.
Carmi's like, bro, I don't got time for this right now, please. But you see, actually, even in that scene, the way that the relationship has evolved, where so much of season one, they're fighting, they're bickering, they're starting to have more of these moments where they can open up to each other and share how they're feeling and dealing with the aftermath of Mikey. But you see them both hold space for each other in this episode, and you see Carmi say, like, his gut reaction is like, sorry, I don't got time. But growth for Carmi is to say, you know, it's okay. I got time for this. Like, let's talk about this right now. I'm gonna light a cigarette while we do this, but let's make space for each other. And just seeing these two dudes like share so openly with each other and so emotionally with how they're processing and dealing with these big questions, I think is also really endearing and meaningful as well. So they're both two dudes that you can see would easily have like every wall up, every barrier up. But the space they hold for each other and are creating for each other is really, really meaningful. It's really cute.
Yeah, and we've seen them both with their walls up, and we know what that looks like. So then to see the contrast and that vulnerability shared between them in this episode is extra sweet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I have just a like little detail, little shout out for the way that that scene is written for one of the lines that Richie delivers, where he says, you're all going to wake up. I'm afraid that you're all going to wake up and drop this ass. And I just thought that that was so like smart to say, for him not to say to drop me, because we do this as human beings. It's like too vulnerable to like reference yourself in a really vulnerable moment. So you're like, drop this ass, you know, and then Carmi responds too as a way to kind of like just build that rapport with him and be like, we're not going to drop this ass. We're not going to drop your ass, you know? And so I thought that like those little details in the way that just like words are chosen are so accurate for the way that we communicate in hard moments. Cause it's so much more vulnerable to say, you're all going to wake up and drop me. Like that feels a lot more scary than when you can throw in like a little bit of an indirect reference that you're clearly implying yourself, but not actually having to say it. Just the intuitiveness of the writers of the show in those little things, I think is so smart, so good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and including his story about the train and all of that, and yeah, he's being vulnerable, but he doesn't really know how to be. So he's he's doing his best, and it's such a sweet scene. But then I also love that there's like all these moments of humor throughout. So like Carmi referencing the original birth on Richie's shirt, the misprint. it just comes perfectly timed in the middle of all of this. Again, the way that this show is able to just infuse humor at the right time, to break up these moments that also feel so human, and just how we would use humor in a difficult
Mm-hmm.
conversation as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's a lot to have to bare your soul to another person. We need moments to breathe. We need to make a joke. Yep.
Hmm.
And the show
Yep.
is so good at doing that. And we see that throughout season one, and it's still shining so strongly in its ability to do that in season two. I love that Richie's like, yeah, collector's item.
Yeah.
All right, we get some moments with Sugar. I think those were particularly notable to me. She was kind of a side character in season one, but it seems that the show's positioning her to be like really integrated into this operation. Once again, Sid is the one who identifies that there is a need for this role before anybody else has the vision to be able to see that. So love that for Sid. Her leadership skills again shining brightly. But I think that Sugar's kind of like way that she banters with all of them, but then also to the bent that she has around numbers and planning and all that kind of stuff makes for some really great moments that collide between Sydney and Carmi's talent and genius when it comes to the menu and whatnot. But the operational side, it's really neat to see them begin to identify how much of a role that Sugar needs to play in that. And I think that is going to be exciting to see play out more. So, no, I'm jumping a little bit ahead to looking ahead, but that's one thing that I'm excited to see is the Sugar dynamics thrown into the mix with this crew.
Yeah, no, Sugar is great. And it's, hey man, as a person who tends to be like quite organized and like project managey, yeah, they need Sugar. And I'm so glad that they acknowledged that and they brought her on board to get everything in order. That scene at the end where the three of them come together, and it's like, you know, coming together, their superpowers collide and they're actually able to like come up with a plan and do this thing. It's so satisfying. And you can see how like Sydney has kind of a mind for this stuff, and she's much more like organized and detailed than Carmi in a lot of ways. But then you bring Sugar in, and she is just a perfect complement. And their dynamic is so good. The banter in their conversations together. I'm very excited for what we're gonna get from that little trio leading this restaurant.
Yeah, and also the ways that like right now it's all great and dandy. Like they see each other's giftings, they need them, they're plugging them into the right places. But what also happens when you've got very different strengths is that they can collide in all of the best
Mm-hmm.
ways because
Yep.
there's a different bent that someone's thinking about a situation that doesn't align with the things that are important to you. So I'm sure there will be some colliding of those things as well, which I think will be really make for some fun moments. Um, while we're talking about the Sugar dynamic throwing in to the mix, I thought that the scene where Richie, Carmi, Sid, and Sugar are in the office and the way that the
Mm-hmm.
dialogue's written in that scene was
Yeah.
so sharp. Like the way that they're jumping and cutting between topics and concepts, and they're talking about the poster on the wall, and then they're talking about the business, and they're talking about the IRS, like the way it's all kind of like threaded together in this kind of crazy mess, but also you're still following. I just thought that it just makes me excited for the dialogue that's going to happen throughout the rest of this season, because I feel like we get a couple moments like that in season one, but the long scene where the dialogue is interweaving with each other in that scene was really fun. And I think it's like a next level layer of sharpness that the show has around writing the dialogue.
And it's again just so rooted in the characters and the relationships between these characters, because you can only have like that kind of like freehand and that type of flowing
Mm.
conversation when you really know the other participants really well. And so I mean, obviously Carmi, Sugar, and Richie have known each other their whole lives, you know, grew up as family. And then Sydney
Mm.
has been around for long enough that she has been able to like integrate into that dynamic, and so they're able to bounce off of each other like that, which again is such a cool contrast to where this whole thing started where Sydney is walking into this just madhouse and doesn't really know anybody and has to pick everything up. And now she is in the know and she's able to direct things and contribute in a different way. So it just, in addition to being so fun to watch, it also shows that depth of relationship shared between the characters.
No, yeah, that's so true. You can only do that when there's such a rapport and connection built with people, because it's kind of like you're halfway reading each other's minds to know when you're making that comment, you're referring to the thing that I said like 3 lines earlier, and now we're talking about something else entirely. And the way you can like easily weave back and forth between all those things is a signal of trust and rapport that all 4 of them seem to have with each other. And I also think that the way that that scene is cut is really great and really sharp, because you've got facial expressions and eye rolls and all of that thrown into the mix, and they're not always, it's often a dissonance between who you're hearing speak versus who you're seeing make a facial expression reaction. And so just it's a lot of quick cuts, but it makes for like a really rhythmic and exciting scene. So yeah, I don't think we got as much of that in season 1. So I think it'll be neat to see what they do with more of that in season 2.
Well, and some of my favorite moments in that are when like other people are also involved. So like after Sydney falls through the wall, she says, "I fell through the wall, good morning," to Marcus. And then his instant reaction is, "Oh, you got strong." It's all of these like little things that are just woven throughout that helps to make it dynamic and vibrant. And again, it's not static. And there is that sense of movement that we had in the first season. It just looks different. And so in that conversation, you had that movement of the camera, the movement of dialogue, this very like rapid pace conversation to keep up that tempo. So I love that even though this episode is so different than the first season, there are those core principles of like what the bear is, those core characteristics that are still present, just slightly different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, very much so. You see characters leave, you see characters show up. It captures the chaos of group dynamics in a small place where you really know each other really well. Everyone's just all over each other all the time, just on top of each other, getting on each other's nerves, popping in, seeing what's going on. It captures the dynamics of group settings really well. Another thing that I thought was noteworthy is, like you mentioned earlier, we start this season with a pretty long scene with Marcus at the hospital. And it's a very somber moment, very quiet moment, which is kind of, it mirrors to me, which I could be wrong about this, but it mirrors to me at least the way that season 1 opens with Carmy in kind of this emotional moment with his dream and who he is as a person. So like, interesting choice to start this season off with Marcus. And I wonder if his journey is going to play a bigger role in this season. It just feels like such a signaling to like where we might be focusing more of our attention, maybe emotionally even, on over the course of this season. Because why else would we start with this character specifically, and not even for like a short little opening sequence? It is a long, at least like several minutes with Marcus at the hospital. So I feel like it's an interesting choice, likely signaling and cluing us into the focus of the season shifting slightly to a different character.
Well, Jen, you're going to have to come back next week, because you will find out.
Mm-hmm.
There is a whole season for us to see if your hypothesis is correct.
Yes, but that is my current working hypothesis. So we've got 9 whole episodes to find out if it's proven or invalidated. All right. Anything else that really stood out to you in this episode?
Another scene that I loved and is an absolute chaos scene is when they're meeting with Uncle Jimmy. And that alarm is blaring. And so you see Sydney and Sugar both have earplugs in, and Carmi doesn't. He is weirdly not bothered by the blaring. And so
No.
they're having to shout at each other over the blaring across the table, asking Uncle Jimmy for more money while all of this is happening. They're half demoed restaurant, and just like verbally telling him that it's going to be profitable with nothing to actually like back it up. And, talking about stars and all of these things. And then Carmi, without asking either of his partners, who are both more like money and I don't know, tethered to reality, he's like, yeah, if we don't pay you back in 18 months, it's all yours. Like, wait, what? I loved that moment because it shows so much. And obviously, like, you have the chaos of the scene, but it's also setting the stakes for the entire season of like, okay, there is this deadline and they have to get this thing up and running as quickly as possible because they need to pay this loan back or they're screwed and they don't have a restaurant. So I love how that is so revealing on so many different levels and is such a quick scene given how much it's able to accomplish.
Yeah, no, it's so good. It immediately adds stakes and it immediately feels like, as the viewer, I'm like, I feel like I'm part of this team. Like, let's go. We've got to do this, guys. We can't lose the restaurant. It creates a forward sense of propulsion that makes every decision, every setback, every breakthrough feel significant because you see that they are united for this timeline and for this goal. And I think even ending the episode with the awareness that we have of the time pressure that they're under, and also the fact that they are condensing the amount of time that they're allowing for them to open, just really creates a sense of like tension, setting up for some great moments of chaos, but also this feeling of like, we are on board, we're working towards something. I know that this is something we talk about in films quite a bit, which is that like sometimes a film just feels a little bit wondering, like, what are we doing? Why are we just wandering through, visiting these different characters? And this creates an immediate sense of there's a larger mission that they're all tethered to, which creates excitement. It creates momentum, and it keeps us coming back for more. Because I'm like, okay, you went from 6 months to 2 months. Surely something's going to go wrong. Something's going to blow up. This is going to be fascinating to watch how all these characters grow and evolve and handle the pressures that they have created for themselves. But yeah, Carmi, not really a great like partnership collaboration moment to make such a large decision on the spot. And you see both. Yeah. I think there's a shot of just both Sydney and Sugar just being like, "What, Carmi? Like, hello? We did not discuss this. You're throwing things out there in this negotiation."
Yeah, it's so good, and I love. Like you said, it sets up potential conflict in the coming season too. It's laying the foundation for things to go wrong. And we know that there's a high likelihood of things going wrong. So it's that way to keep you coming back. Like, are they going to be able to pull off this truly impossible self-imposed deadline of madness? You have to come back next week and see.
Yeah. And in case you as the viewer didn't get that fully yet, there's a whole moment where Sid's like, this is a terrible idea. Yep, okay, cool. Just making sure. Because we're all aware of our absolute insanity. I love my last little fun little moment was Richie's password. which you referenced in your episode title. But in I think one of the previous episodes in season 1, we were talking about how like character revealing moment is what you give a character an envelope and see how they react and what they do with it. And I feel like the other one to add to the list is, what is the password of our characters? Because I feel like there's some in the show, like Sugar, I'm sure she's got the like encrypted like string of characters generated that's highly strong, very responsible. And then you've got Richie that's just go fast boats made up, all one word.
All
and
one
I just
word.
feel like it's so perfect for that character.
Yeah, amazing. And I also love how we learn that, because it's in the middle of this meeting with the alarm
Like, oh, shit.
blaring, and then the password is Go Fast Boats Mojito, all one word. Like, oh, sure, yeah.
But
So again, it's
he also just
this
like,
levity in the middle of chaos. It's great.
yes. He also just like yells it into the phone, out the
Yeah.
top of his lungs for the entire world to hear. Yeah, good stuff. Well, he has to yell it also because you're right, the alarm's going off in the
Yeah.
background too. So it's just a perfect
Yeah.
storm. Perfect storm.
Some of my other like favorite lines really quickly are
Uh-huh.
when Fack is taking the video game away. He's like, your home is my home now. It's like, it's perfect.
And then he proceeds to kiss it like he's
Yeah.
kissing the forehead of like a little child.
Oh, it's the best.
He's great. Every moment, every fact scene is golden.
Oh,
Golden.
yeah. Another moment that I loved from Marcus is when Sydney is explaining about the construction of the pans to Tina, and like he just passes by and is like, "You're an aluminum core."
Yeah.
It was so good, so just out of the blue, but also shows you a little bit more about that character, because we all have those friends who will say
Just are
something like
trolling.
that to interrupt your serious conversation.
Just constantly trolling. And those moments in the fair just happen when you least expect it too. You're like in the middle of a moment, and then they just kind of they throw little set of sprinkles on top. It's great.
Mm-hmm. And then, like, one other little thing that I just wanted to point out is that there are multiple hearts drawn on stuff in the office. So now, like, there's a big old heart on the whiteboard. There's a sticky note on the door jamb to the office that has a heart on it. So I'm so curious about which character has been drawing hearts on things in the office. My vote is Fact, but I just think that that's really cute that there's so many little hearts in the office.
Yeah, that's really adorable. The bear always has like fun little things in frame for us. So great.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So
Love it.
little Easter egg, little nuggets. All right, let's give out awards, shall we? The first one, well, actually, refresher for those of you that might not have listened to some of our previous episodes of TVNS. We like to give out some awards because we want to celebrate all of the crazy, ridiculous things that happen within an episode, and we have come up with our categories of choice for specifically tailored to each show that we watch. So for the bear, we've got the category Top Chef, which is the character that is the top chef of the episode. Everyone is free to interpret that however they like for each time the award is given. The second category is achievement in chaos. So this is pretty self-explanatory. There's a lot of submissions every episode for this one. So it's a moment that is particularly chaotic in whatever way that we deem is significant to award. And then the third category is spiciest line. So this is someone that's really serving up some heat in a particular scene. So our first category is Top Chef. So Sarah, who's getting this award and why?
I got to give this to Sid. She is being a great leader. She is recognizing other people's strengths. She offers Tina the sous chef job, and she's just killing tasks for their new restaurant. So got to give it to Sydney.
Nice. Yeah, she is. She's on her game this episode. She is killing it. I am giving this award to Sugar for jumping right into the chaos. She rolls her sleeves up, and like you can see her kind of being like, I don't know if I want to join this little endeavor, and then she gets sucked right in. And honestly, I would too. So it's really cool to see her just jump right in, get her hands dirty, share her opinion, share her thoughts, formulate a plan together with this group of yahoos, and she's part of the crew now.
Oh, it's a great choice. Yes, go Sugar. We're here for this.
Yes. Okay, next category is achievement in chaos. Which moment is getting this award?
I am giving this to Carmi for his lack of math skills. And we see this multiple times. We see it at the beginning when he's trying to write numbers on a cardboard box and do math that way. And then we see it in the meeting with Uncle Jimmy as well. Carmy and math do not go well together.
Especially in the middle of the negotiation, he's just throwing out numbers like 80K and it's like 90K, 90K. You know? My word is actually also for Carmy for his cardboard math, because we don't do back of the napkin math out here. We do back of the cardboard math.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is some serious math here, Jen. Not back of the napkin.
No. Well, I love that there's a moment right afterwards. I think she's talking to Sugar, trying to get her to recruit her to join in as a product manager. And Sugar's like, oh, I don't know. I feel like you've got it. And all Sydney needs to do is just hold up the cardboard. And Sugar's like, yes, I see. I see what you mean. Yes. Spiciest line. Who's getting this award and for what line that they doled out?
Yeah, I'm going to give it to Richie for when he asks Sydney, you fell through Fenway? He gets really indignant about her falling through the wall because she broke Fenway.
Yes. It's just such, it makes for such a great bit that they definitely capitalize on that with lots of fun little comments and bits with that one. My choice for this is a combination of Sydney and Carmy. So Sydney says, everyone's food certified except for Richie because he's pause, and Carmy goes, Richie. So you know you're getting dissed when your name is the adjective for the insult, because you're you.
Oh, it's so good. And it's such a little line too, in the midst of all of the work, all of the logistics and details of all of the businessy things, and they just drop that little zinger in there.
Yeah. And also, we as the viewers, we get it. We're like, yes, this makes sense.
Yeah. We know Richie, but he's read a book and he's trying to change. So maybe he'll get food certified.
He did. There's a really sweet little moment where he's getting worked up and he starts counting before he blows up. It's the Fenway with the drywall scene.
So sweet.
He starts counting under his breath.
Hey, we'll take it. We love character growth.
We do. Listen, personal growth, really reflecting on our triggers and our impulses. This is very good. Very healthy. All right, looking ahead, what are you excited for as you kind of re-experience season 2? What are you excited for this upcoming season?
There are a few episodes that I'm really pumped to talk about. There are some really fun character moments that I'm looking forward to being able to unpack, and just the way that the writing in this season just continues to be exceptional and continues to develop these really interesting and complex characters, showing us new facets of them. I'm excited to be back with this crew again and see where the story takes us.
Yes, very much so. So I think I mentioned earlier, I'm excited to see how Sugar is thrown into the mix. She's kind of a new ingredient in this crew, and I think she'll add lots of really fun moments and flavor to this crew. And she's so different from all of them, and her style of humor is also very different. It's a lot more quick and biting and all that kind of stuff, and sharp. So I think that will be really fun to see. I feel like I've said this a million times in our season 1 looking ahead section, but there's so much with Marcus. The show has really invested in creating so many dimensions to him that we've seen throughout season 1. And I feel like we got to see some of that play out, but man, there seems to be so much brewing for Marcus in this season. So yeah, I feel like once again, I think every episode in the season, I'm going to just be putting Marcus on my list of things that I'm looking forward to in the upcoming episodes to see what they do with his character. And then this feels like a new era for this crew. So I think that we are seeing the show lean into different things, different types of showcasing the character moments, different ways of constructing dialogue. Like all of that feels new and fresh. So I'm intrigued to see how they continue to build on that stuff. So lots of things.
Yeah. And the good news is that this season there is 10 whole episodes.
Yeah.
So we get 2 extra episodes to explore with these characters, explore the new dynamic, see if they can get this restaurant off the ground.
Which honestly, in the world of The Bear, like proportionally in terms of time, with these being 30-minute episodes and then generally 30-minute episodes, and then 2 whole extra ones, that's a lot more time proportionally for the story. And I feel like each episode of The Bear is so meaty and full that it feels like a significant amount more for how they're going to play out the pacing of the arcs and stuff. So that'll be fun to see. I'm glad we get more content. This is what we need.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm very glad too. 8 episodes was perfect for season 1, but this time we get to spend a little bit more time with these characters.
And really let those arcs have more time to breathe and languish in some of those moments. Yeah, that'll be really good. All right. Well, this is our review and discussion of episode 1. You can find it available to stream on Hulu. Thank you for listening to this week's episode and diving into this new season of TV and Us with us. Our name sums it up. We're big fans of TV and the powerful ways we can connect with each other and the world around us. This podcast is about all of us and our shared stories, so everyone is welcome here, and we're so glad you spent time with us today as we kicked off our journey through The Bear Season 2. You can subscribe to this podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you tune to your favorite shows. Drop us a rating and review letting us know your thoughts about Season 2, Episode 1. You can connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at tvnspod, or you can email us at tvnspod@gmail.com. We will be back very soon with our next episode, episode 2, for The Bear Season 2. We hope you have an amazing week, and we'll talk again very soon.